Sometimes, the answers to life's greatest questions don't come from books, or success, or achievements, but from the quietest, most unexpected moments. I want to take you back to a day that changed everything for me, an ordinary day, where nothing seemed out of the ordinary at all. Yet it shifted my entire perspective on life. That day started like any other, with the same routines, the same distractions. I found myself sitting on a bench in the middle of a busy street. The city was alive with noise, the clattering of cars, people talking on the phone, the rush of footsteps echoing all around me. But I felt disconnected, like I was just floating, observing everything but not part of it. My thoughts were heavy, weighed down by the burdens I didn't want to confront. I was sitting there for what felt like hours, watching people rushing by. There was a sense of urgency in everything around me, a constant movement that never seemed to stop. But I couldn't help but wonder, where were they all going? What were they chasing? I could see the frustration in some of their faces. I saw people checking their watches, cursing under their breath, running to meet deadlines that didn't seem to matter. In that moment, I realized how much of life is spent running to meet expectations, running from our fears, running to achieve things that often don't give us the fulfillment we think they will. I had been running too, but what was I really running toward? And why was I always in such a hurry? As I watched, a woman dropped her keys in the middle of the street. She didn't even pause, just kept on walking, barely noticing. A man walking by saw her keys and stopped to pick them up. He didn't hesitate to hand them back to her. She took them without a word, barely even looking at him, and kept walking. That small act of kindness left me stunned. The man hadn't been in a rush, hadn't had any reason to stop for a stranger, but he did. He chose to help, to connect, even in the middle of a busy day. I began to realize how many of us are so wrapped up in our own lives that we miss opportunities to be kind, to connect with others. It made me ask myself, when was the last time I stopped to help someone without expecting anything in return? When did I last pause to truly notice the people around me, not just the things I had to do? Just then, an elderly man walked past me slowly with a small bag of breadcrumbs. He sat on the next bench, taking his time. He wasn't in a rush. He didn't seem to have anywhere to be, no deadlines to meet. He began feeding pigeons, scattering crumbs on the ground one at a time, watching them gather. His face was soft, calm, almost peaceful. For a moment, I found myself wishing I could be like him, someone who had time to enjoy the simple things, who didn't feel the need to race through life. How did he get to this place of peace? Was it something he learned after years of rushing and struggling? I couldn't help but think, what if I could learn to be present like him? What if I didn't have to be so focused on the future or the past, but could just enjoy what was happening right now? I realized that life isn't about running toward something. It's about being here, fully engaged in the present moment. If we spend all our time looking ahead, we miss the beauty of the here and now. Then a group of children ran past me, laughing, carefree. They were playing a game of tag, not a worrying in the world. I watched them for a while, their energy infectious. I thought back to my own childhood. How often had I spent my time running outside, carefree, not worrying about anything? When did I stop playing like that? Somewhere along the way, I had traded my carefree moments for stress. I had forgotten how to be spontaneous, how to enjoy the moment, how to be a little less serious. These kids, in their innocence, reminded me of the importance of play. Life isn't just about work or responsibilities. It's about joy, laughter, and letting go. It's about not taking ourselves too seriously and finding moments of joy in the simplest of things. A little further down the street, I saw a couple standing together. Their body language was tense. They were talking, arguing, maybe, but their words were barely audible. I couldn't tell exactly what the argument was about, but it was clear they were upset. I watched as their voices rose, their faces strained. I almost expected them to walk away from each other, to go their separate ways. But something surprising happened. After a few minutes of silence, they both sighed deeply. The woman reached out and touched the man's arm, and he softened, his expression changing. He took her hand. They stood there for a moment, in silence, just holding each other. I realized that love isn't perfect. It isn't always easy, but it's resilient. Relationships aren't about avoiding conflict, they're about learning how to navigate it together, how to stay when things get tough, how to forgive, and how to choose each other over and over again. This moment made me think about my own relationships. How often do I walk away when things get hard? How often do I let pride stand in the way of reconciling? It taught me that real love is about commitment, not perfection. It's about staying through the challenges and continuing to choose each other, even when it's hard. Finally, I noticed a bird, a small sparrow, hopscotching along the street, collecting twigs and food to bring back to its nest. It worked with determination, focused on the task at hand. I watched it for a while, amazed at its persistence. The bird wasn't concerned about the noise of the city, about the people rushing by, about anything other than its mission. It reminded me that life isn't just about surviving, it's about building something meaningful. The bird wasn't just collecting food, it was creating a home, a place for its future family. I thought about my own life and the work I put into it. What was I building? Was I focused on the things that would truly matter in the long run? Or was I just surviving, going through the motions without considering the bigger picture? Life is about purpose. Even the smallest efforts, when done with meaning, build something significant. That little bird was doing its part, no matter how small it seemed. And that made me realize that my efforts, too, can be meaningful even when they don't seem grand. That day changed everything for me. I stopped seeing life as a race and began to see it as a journey. Each person, each moment, each bird on the street taught me something important. I learned that life isn't about avoiding struggles, chasing happiness, or measuring success. It's about being present, connecting with others, learning to love and forgive, and building something meaningful with what we have. I stopped asking myself, what do I want from life? And started asking, what does life want from me? When I began answering that question, I started living in a way that mattered not just to me, but to those around me and to the world.